Slender Man. I'm sure you all know about him being disgusting creatures of the night yourselves, click-clacking away at your keyboards. This monster has persisted on the internet since 2009, when it was created through a Photoshop contest and something awful by a user called Victor Surge. People really liked the creature, and so they made their own content featuring the character. One really good example of this is the web series Marble Hornets. However, we're not here to talk about good Slender Man media. We're here to talk about gross, smelly shit. In 2012, a project popped up on Kickstarter. Indie filmmaker AJ Meadows was trying to fund a film about Slender Man, and the Kickstarter raised around $11,000 for him to make the film. And did it turn out good? No, it kind of turned out shit. Okay, I don't want to be that harsh. There was obviously passion put into the film, but it's just not really at all good. I mean, it's found footage, which is predictable for a movie about Slender Man. Every scene feels like it's one take. The actors aren't particularly bad, but they're not really awesome either. And finally, the writing just isn't good. To show you all of that, though, we'll have to get into the meat of this film. So let's go. Okay, so try not to get confused as we go along. This film is split up into 3 different stories. One is about these 2 siblings named Emma and Chase. The other is about this detective guy who I can't remember the name of. And the last is about this father who lost his son to Slender Man. Anyway, our film begins with the father recording him and his son playing catch. Somehow he loses his son even though he was watching him literally the whole time. Like, come on, man. Your eyes are on him the whole time. How did you lose him? Anyway, we then cut to the opening credits, which remind me vaguely of Marble Hornets. That's actually a recurring theme throughout this film. It feels like they were trying to get the Marble Hornets vibe, and like, due to some extent, it's just way less interesting. After the opening credits, we are introduced to the brother and sister duo Emma and Chase. They are attending their father's funeral, or his celebration of life. I'm not sure, but Chase doesn't like that Emma's going with the camera.
Hey, you said you weren't gonna...
No, you have to let me take it.
No.
I have to make an entire 15-minute long documentary for class next week, and this...
There's not any particular reason she even has it. She isn't haunted by Slender Man like the characters in Marble Hornets were. So story-wise, there's not even any reason for her to be filming herself. She just kind of does. They go home, they live together, I guess, and Emma finds that her dad was researching children's disappearances on his computer. Also, small nitpick, but why is she holding the camera in her hand? Just put it on the desk like a normal person. For some reason, Emma finds this suspicious, but Chase just thinks that their dad was doing research for a book he was writing. Honestly, that makes sense to me, but because we need to push the plot forward, Emma has to find the sus. I noticed that's another thing that happens in the film. There's not really any rhyme or reason to it. I call it the just because phenomenon. Why does Emma carry a camera with her? Just because. Why does Emma find these newspaper clippings her dad was reading suspicious? Oh, just because. These things don't really have an explanation, but they're needed to move the plot forward, and it's kind of a lazy way to progress your story. Another small thing I find irritating is Emma just immediately assumes that her dad must have played a role in these kidnappings. Usually people try to explain away potential incriminating things that involve their close family members, like Chase does in the same scene, but Emma assumes the worst. Anyway, we then come back to the father who's talking to someone off screen. They are revealed to be a child that he kidnapped. He brings her to a barn where he has presumably been sacrificing other children to Slender Man. Probably in order to bring back his son. I don't think it's ever explained why he does this, but I think that's what you're supposed to assume, so we're going with that. I wanted to say how much I hate the Slender Man kidnaps children trope. Not only is a spooky character kidnapping children, or just children going missing in general, an overused horror trope, but it's also just not a good one. I don't mean to mention Marble Hornets so much, but I feel the reason Slender Man works so well in Marble Hornets is because you don't know his motive. He's a powerful, overbearing figure that appears at random intervals, and you don't know why he is there or what he wants. That's what makes the operator in Marble Hornets so uncomfortable. The Slender Man in this movie just isn't scary or intimidating. He's everything a horror antagonist shouldn't be. Anyway, after the child has been sacrificed, the father stumbles around his property and screams, "Fuck you," into the woods.
Fuck you!
I want to mention how not intimidating this actor is. I mean, he's trying his best, but he's just not really frightening. It's either that or the numerous other bad actors are just making his performance less impactful. We cut to our 4th main character, the detective guy I mentioned earlier. For some reason, he also films, which is again not explained. He talks to this woman who has information on other cases where Slender Man has shown up. He then goes to the father's ex-wife's apartment to talk with her. He asks the ex-wife a few questions. We're then back to Emma and Chase, and
You want to get freaking Jennifer Aniston getting double teamed? I guarantee you that exists.
Yeah, but this isn't Jennifer Aniston getting double teamed, Chase.
well, the acting nor the writing is any better. I'm not sure what I was expecting. I also wanted to point out that this scene has so many jump cuts. Now, for a YouTube video or something like that, jump cuts are totally fine, but when you're trying to make a smoothly flowing scene in a found footage movie, it makes a conversation seem extremely unnatural when you cut between different takes of the same scene. It seems like the editor just took the best takes and smashed them together to get this scene. It makes the conversation flow super roughly and unnaturally. And to end the scene, we get a really cheap jump scare.
Has that been on the whole time?
The siblings then go to a school that a kid was kidnapped from to investigate, and despite Emma really wanting to go there, she gives up after just a few seconds. This scene was almost fun. It looked like it was set up for them to explore a spooky location, but no, it's just an excuse for another jump scare. This is another thing I think Marble Hornets got right. It had jump scares, of course, but it didn't really rely on them as this film does. Slender Man himself isn't even the most interesting part of Marble Hornets. I find him most engaged whenever the characters explore creepy and abandoned locations in order to find clues or just to continue the story. These locations and the suspense of a potential Slender Man encounter are what build suspense and make you anxious. Back to the film, though. The encounter with Slendy prompts Emma to call the detective guy back for information. We cut back to the father who's driving around, and he also kidnaps a kid in the middle of the day and the suburbs, and he doesn't get caught. That is extremely lucky. He takes the kid back to his house, drinks some whiskey, and has a cry. That's a lot like my typical day, except without the kidnapping and drinking part. Because these stories need to converge somehow, he magically knows the address of Emma and Chase and leaves a note in their mailbox. We again cut back to Emma, who gets a call back from the detective and finds the note in the mailbox. She very intelligently goes to the address listed on the note. You know, like smart people do. Chase predictably gets stabbed by the father, but it's not even super obvious he got stabbed. The entire scene he's holding this bag of chips or popcorn, and then he drops it and stabs Chase, but there's no blood after, so you don't even know for sure if that's what happened. So the detective guy is off to the house to rescue Emma and Chase, and then we get this pretty cool shot. After that, though, he ties the both of them up in order to sacrifice them, I guess. I don't know, I guess Slender Man kills anyone now. These two plots had to come together somehow, I guess. Emma screams a lot over the guy's exposition, so you literally can't hear it. No, this moment had some potential. If I cared about these characters in any way, this moment would be at least a little tense. But because this film is constantly jumping around, you know little to nothing about Chase and Emma other than their dad died and their siblings. So as a result, this entire scene is just boring and feels like a slog to sit through. Chase secretly has a knife, though, and well, detective guy shows up and gets the father out of the house, giving Emma and Chase a chance to escape. This finale is honestly super boring, so lightning round, let's go. Emma and Chase run through the woods, detective guy is almost shot but isn't, and the dad gets away, so instead he tries to find Chase and Emma. Chase and Emma walk slowly through the woods for a while until Chase is taken by a Slender Man and Emma screams with a weird PS1 filter over it. And that's it. That's the Slender Man. This Slender Man is not a terrible film. However, it's not a very good one either. Everything in it is either boring or mediocre. There doesn't really feel like there's any backbone or structure to it. It feels almost like the director watched a few Marble Hornets videos and decided that's what he wanted to make a film centering around. As I said in the beginning, the acting isn't phenomenal, but it's not terrible either. The characters they're playing seem to be the actor's downfall most of the time. That and, well, it seems like most scenes are done in one take, causing a lot of times where you can tell the actors clearly messed up their lines, but the director is either incompetent or doesn't care enough to have them try again. This movie is also incredibly boring and it drags. The pacing is extremely off. It turns into a slow-burning, uninteresting movie. There's almost always nothing going on. Most of the time we see characters driving or characters talking, unlike Marble Hornets where the characters barely talked and most of the videos were of them exploring locations or investigating what's going on. There were several times in this film where it felt like it was leading up to that, but instead they just hit you with cheap jump scares. This film had potential. There are many web series and other Slender Man media that make him scary and interesting at the same time on a much smaller budget than this movie had. And it's just a shame that this is all AJ Meadows had to show for it.